everyone. First, thank you for joining this webinar. Hopefully, I can during next hour, teach you something that useful and it's well spent for your time, especially during the weekend. Before we jump into the content, I just want to kind of introduce myself. My name is Henry. I'm the co-founder of Sesame Open. Sesame Open is a middle layer protocols on top of Ethereum blockchain, eventually going to power a scalable decentralized exchange in the short term initially, and long term they're going to power a fully decentralized commerce network. My background is actually started as an engineer. I used to work at Nortel Networks, which has an IP routing and a security protocol, and I have 8 patents granted. If you think about blockchain technology, it's all about IP plus security. After many years there, I sort of decided to switch to the business side, and luckily I got into Wharton to study MBA. That's also gave me the training of economics, game theory, incentive design, and basically the second part of the blockchain or the crypto space. After Wharton, I was luckily joined Google. So where Google's, I was managing Google's mobile partnership. Here is today's agenda. First, I will just give you some kind of a high-level kind of description what tokenomics is. Then I'm going to talk about why tokenomics is so important. Then I'm going to give you a case study on FCoin to kind of demonstrate, to showcase that if you don't have a good tokenomic design, what would happen for a kind of a very promising project. Then after that, I'm going to give you some thought on the kind of fundamentals in terms of how to design the token, how to think about how to design the token. Then the rest of the time will be a Q&A, and definitely going to try to answer as many questions as you guys have. So what is token economics? The reality is there's no consensus in the definition right now in the market. Some people refer tokenomics is all about the if you do a token sale, what's the allocation of the token, how much allocated for the investors, funding team, the community, etc. Some define tokenomics as the usage of the tokens, and some kind of define tokens as kind of economics, like macroeconomics and microeconomic, etc. So from our view my personal view is that tokenomics encompasses like a full range of topics. That's basically influence the creations, usage, and value of the token. And more importantly is affect your product, because with any token-based product, the key functions is actually the token. So high level, and also the tokenomics involved knowledge and skills from many kind of domains, including like microeconomics, game theory, market psychology, behavior incentives, and sometimes you even have to do some kind of financial modeling analysis. This just want to show you how, when people think about it, actually it's really complex in terms of design a very good token. So then the most important question is why is tokenomics is very, very important. This is the reason that tokenomics is so important is that everybody talk about a blockchain, but technically blockchain is only a computing technology. According to Dan Boneh, which is the famous Stanford professors who is the best in the kind of a blockchain space. So he summarized blockchain in less than 10 words. Basically, blockchain is an authenticated data structure that provides persistencies and liveness. For people who have a little bit of background in computer, basically blockchain is only a data structure. And what is a database? So database technically is the distributed ledger. For example, Bitcoin is a kind of equivalent to database, and Ethereum is also another database. And blockchain is a technology that allow you to create a distributed ledger. It's a data structure that is used in a database. As everybody know that technologies does not make impact. The applications using the technologies actually make the impact. People may not notice that for any applications, especially token-based applications to work, you also requires another piece of technology, and I define it as a tokenomics. If you look at the kind of a diagram here, everybody knows Bitcoin. It's the very first and the most popular blockchain applications, which is cryptocurrency. However, everybody knows Bitcoin is built on blockchain, but very few people recognize that without token economics design inside this kind of a solution to incentivize the miners to maintain the distributed ledgers, Bitcoins will not work. So happens actually the incentive design is kind of very elegant, that kind of somehow worked to incentivize the miners, like a lot of miners to join the network to kind of mine the Bitcoin. Otherwise, also the more miners join the networks, the harder for attackers to attack the network, the safer for the Bitcoin to kind of survive kind of any type of attack. The another most important thing, like to think about why tokenomics is important, is from a different angle, in the sense that token economics is a new tool that did not exist before in the internet or mobile space. Why this is so important in the sense that every time we have something new, that means we potentially there's potentially the industry can be changed because we have some new technologies. If you compare this to two technology, blockchain and plus tokenomics, most of the time the distributed ledger, which is powered by blockchain, actually is inferior to the centralized database. For example, it is slow and it is hard to maintain, and it requires a different kind of programming language skills to kind of develop application on top of it. So if the application requires two pieces of technology, one is actually inferior to the industry, tokenomics then should recognize that tokenomics actually is the driving force for creating new business structures and potentially disrupt the kind of incumbents. This is probably many people didn't recognize this when something really comes, just like the internet came, like web came like 25 years ago. Because it's something really new that allows a lot of domains to be disrupted and to be changed. For example, like Amazon, as just started after the kind of the web just went alive. So what is the market reality is today? And the truth is, few entrepreneurs or investors recognize tokenomics is actually as important as blockchain for a project to create long-term value. Right now, given the market is down, most people focus on what the value of a kind of a blockchain project. And my personal belief is that without a good tokenomic design, no project can create kind of a long-term value. You can have a short-term value, like get returns in the secondary market, the issue tokens. But if you kind of really create a long-term sustained values, you have to have a very good tokenomic design. The second reality is a token design is actually really complex and counterintuitive. It requires a deep knowledge and skills across many domains. Because of that, the reality is that very few people fully understand tokenomic design because it requires multiple knowledge from multiple domains, and very few people that have the kind of a cross-domain knowledge. So this is probably the reality, but it's also a opportunities for many people. If you can combine all the knowledge across different domains, or you can team up with people from different domains, this is opportunity for a lot of people here to kind of really create a good token design and eventually have a real impact and also change the world. This is also why I'm here today, want to contribute to the communities. Hopefully through these kind of webinars, I can get people's attention about tokenomics. Also maybe can learn something from this, webinar. At least at the end of the webinar, you can start thinking about the tokenomics. Now I'm going to do a case study on FCoin, basically to kind of show you how important token economics is. And if you screwed up, you probably screwed up a big opportunities that you can have. So what is FCoin? For people, I'm sure FCoin is not well known in the Europe or US. It's also best known for creeping the Ethereum network when they did a kind of a marketing campaign in terms of deciding which token to be selected to be listed on the exchange. But for people in Asia, especially in China, everybody knows about FCoin. Is a kind of a crypto exchange, so only began trading in May this year. The reason they are known for is because they invented the transfer mining kind of incentive program. So why this? I want to use FCoin as a good case study. First of all, its incentive program is so effective that within 2 weeks of launching the FCoin transfer mining incentive programs, the 24-hour trading volume, daily trading volumes on FCoin reached like 70 billion plus US dollars. For people who are not familiar with exchange business, basically the rest of all exchange combined in terms of daily trading volume is only about $6 to $7 billion. You can do the math, like how incentive and how sensational this kind of performance of FCoin after 2 weeks after this launch the program. However, on September 4th, if you check on the coin market cap, FCoin's daily trading volume drops all the way down to about $0.2 billion. That's almost like 99% drops. It's only like 1 or 2% of the $17 billion in trading volumes. So that's why it's very good case study to set a huge up and downs, and just want to explain to you what really happens here. So the first thing that FCoin did is they launched a program called transfer mining. This is very, very good incentive design. What it really means that what the program is all about is that for people who trade tokens or buy or sell tokens on FCoin, most of the time they charge you 0.1% in terms of transaction fees. Basically, what FCoin transfer mining does is we're going to collect your fee, but we're going to pay you back in FCoin's own token called FT token, that's equivalent to the kind of fee you pay to the exchange. So the reason that is a good design because to a lot of traders or the buyer traders, they really cares about the transaction fee. And if you think about the people always rational, and because this exchange like waive all my fees and they get back token, and sometimes the token actually appreciate it, that's basically create a very good strong incentive for people to switch from other exchange to FCoin. That's the reasons that they drive the kind of volumes all the way up to $70 billion with the first two weeks of launching the product. However, what caused the huge drop in terms of trading volumes? because the reason is because they have another kind of token design, which is the 80% revenue distribution in terms of the token design. Basically, anytime you have a token design, you want to manage token supply, demand, and the circulations. The transfer mining is basically you minting new tokens into the network. Basically, it's a token supply. If according to the white papers, there's almost no kind of a token demand, native demand in the white paper. And sometimes, if you know this exchange business, it's relatively very hard to create kind of a token demand in the kind of exchange business. So the way they think about it, how to kind of reduce the circulations is to incentivize people to hold tokens. The idea is that, okay, if you hold tokens, you're going to get dividend payout. And the dividend is actually quite significant. That means 80% of all the revenues the platform generated. And the idea is because you hold tokens, you're not going to sell on the market. The circulation of the token in the market is small, and the price will be stabilized, and eventually will, hopefully the continue for the incentive program to continue to work. However, the dividend ideas, the 80% revenue distribution, is the fundamental flaw in the whole token design. It caused the price to drop, and once the price drop and the incentive powers for the tokens also stops working. That's basically caused the whole collapse of the kind of FCoin business. This is the chart, shows the FT, basically the FCoin's platform token. You see the chart, you can see that within kind of after they reach the peak, within 2 months, the price dropped like 95%. So then people kind of starting kind of sort of speculated what happened. Is it just because people pump and dump, or there's some kind of people want to, let's say competitors want to dump your coin and etc. But the truth is that there's an invisible force, which is sort of market force, that actually caused the price to drop. Basically, with the current design, the price will drop no matter what you do. The kind of reading is that there are 2 types of tokens from kind of a price, how the price is driven, or how the prices goes up and down. There are currency-like token versus asset-like token. In kind of currency-like token, the price is driven by the supply and demand. But for asset-like token, for example, if you have real estate, you tokenize real estate, the price is really driven by the intrinsic values of underlying asset. If you design the token with dividend, basically this is what FCoin did, you basically make its token as asset-like token. That means once it's asset-like tokens, the kind of values is the price of the tokens is driven by kind of values of underlying asset. Just give you some examples. If you do that, what would happen? So everybody knows Apple, right? However, if Apple does dividend payout and the stock split every day, what the kind of price curve would look like, and more importantly, what the market reaction would look like. I think you must have your own answers easily, right? So what the kind of FCoins, the revenue sharing as well as minting, is basically you do the dividend payout and the stock split every day. And that means the price will, by design, will drop. So to kind of illustrate how the price will drop, so I kind of did a kind of spreadsheet model. Just this is not exact number, but we made some assumptions, and do the kind of simple math based on to reflect how the model works. Basically, within 3 days, the token price dropped 86%. So the point I'm trying to tell you here is the price drop is by design, and because the price drop of the tokens, the incentive programs, which is based on the token price, and stop working. And this is caused the kind of wall because they have no incentives, and the kind of trading volume drop accordingly as well. Now let's talk about once we know how important the token economics is, let's talk about some kind of fundamentals regarding the kind of token design. So I'm basically going to talk about a good token design from an investor perspective. Because once you understand from an investor perspective, because the investor wants the returns of their tokens, that means if you can convince the investor that your token is good, that means also you probably have the better design. So from an investor perspective, what I look for a token is that a token that basically captures the value of a large local economy, and the economy is created by a network-based product. And also the token economic design that need to create almost like 3 things. The first is the incentives to attract network participants to join the network. Once they join the network, you also need to manage token monetary policies to kind of increase the value of the token, and also basically increase the value of all the token holders. And once you become the token holders and your value appreciates, you will stay with the network, and also you are willing to kind of word of mouth to get other people onto the network because your token will appreciate accordingly. The third thing is that whether this kind of network has kind of a network effect that's created by the kind of token design, because the network effect can grow the network faster, and because the token value is directly tied to the size of the network, so basically the faster network grows, the faster the token value grows as well. So kind of mentioned that why I'm looking for a kind of network-based product. Basically, people call this a crypto network. Basically, you tokenize a network-based product, you call it kind of a crypto network. The question is basically why I'm looking for this, because a crypto network is revolutionary. You have other type of token, for example, the asset-backed token like real estate, you tokenize real estate. Those tokens can also be good, but I would consider those type of tokens are evolution instead of a revolution, in the sense that fundamentally they don't change the business model, and the tokens won't appreciate very fast. So the reason that crypto network can be revolution is, number one, it fundamentally changed the business model from kind of equity-based business model to kind of token-based business model. What does token-based business model really means is that it doesn't need to take the tax, which is sometimes called middleman fee. Because you don't take the tax, the middleman fees, and the savings of the tax, the middleman fees can be returned back to the kind of network participant. That means a fully decentralized crypto network provides the best economic value. And you can know that whoever provides best economic values eventually will win. The second reason is that in a crypto network, it can leverage a kind of a token, which is a new tool that is actually better than cash, which in a centralized network sometimes use cash to buy users basically as incentive for users to join a network. The actually tokens is actually better than cash, because cash doesn't appreciate, and token actually, if you hold token, and token can appreciate. So they can leverage tokens to incentivize network participants not only to join the network, to continue to stay at the network, but also can help to scale the network as well. The third point is that it turns the participants of the network into owner of the network by basically distributing tokens to the network participants. Because of that, you sort of change the game in the sense that everybody has the incentive aligned and want to help to grow, to scale the network faster. That means comparatively, compared to the centralized kind of network, you have a competitive advantage in terms of go-to-market. That also means that you can scale the network much, much faster. This is basically the key reasons why when I look at a token, I always look at a token that is, associated with the crypto network, not the kind of asset like the token. So the first thing I want the token design to do is regarding the kind of incentive design. Why the incentive is important is because to grow a network, the first thing you want to do is you want to get people to join your network. So people are rational and they react to kind of incentives, and especially monetary incentive. And the tokens with the market value and liquidities is a perfect monetary incentives kind of to attract people to join the network. The process is actually relatively straightforward. However, very, very good incentive design requires deep understandings of the product and the business in the target domain. Basically, the process is, you just analyze the business product deeply. Then you kind of need to establish what your business goals are. Then you identified the participants that are critical to achieve your goals. Once you identify the participant, what kind of incentive they want, then you design the incentive using a token to incentivize this participant. So just to give you an example, let's go back to the FCoin. Why transfer mining is a great incentive design, right? Why they get it right? First of all, if you look at the team of FCoin, they are veterans in the crypto exchange. They are like a domain expert. The founder of FCoin is the ex-CTO of Huobi, which is one of the top crypto exchange in the world. Because they have deep understanding of the business as well as their product, they could identify what the kind of goals or the metrics they evaluate themselves for a crypto exchange. And they kind of recognize that if you talk to people who are working in exchange, they always tell you what's the only metric or the best, the top metric you cares about. Basically, all they tell you is that, okay, the only thing we care about is the daily trading volume. So once you know what the goal is, you're going to figure out, okay, who are the drivers that could drive the daily trading volume? Then you could recognize is actually the traders. It's not the project who want to list their tokens on the exchange, or the funds that have a lot of tokens kind of also influence the selection of the tokens, or not the market makers inside the exchange. Is actually the kind of traders. So then you analyze what the incentives traders care about. And if you know the crypto business, exchange business, there are not much things you could do kind of incentivize traders. But one of the things you could do as is very effective is the transaction fee. Because traders don't like to pay fees, and because people are rational, because if I don't pay fee and my cost is lower. So basically transaction fee reduction is an incentive for the traders. That's exactly what FCoin trying to design the kind of called transfer mining. And as you kind of from result, you can see they got it right. And it's very, very effective. The second thing that I would like to see is the design has a very good token monitor policy. The reason is that the policy has a direct impact on the token price and appreciation. And the token price and appreciation not only is important to get your business working, or your incentive working, and also kind of have returns to for the investor perspective. I hold tokens, I want to kind of return. So monetary policy, and especially the token monetary policy, is basically about token supply, supply in the system, the demand of the tokens. The demand can be native demand, which inside your network, inside your product, or they kind of demand from the secondary market, which is people just buy from the exchange and hold and trade. And also another thing to consider is the token circulation, how fast the token is circulated, whether people want to hold it or not. And that's also going to impact the price and kind of an appreciation. As I kind of mentioned before, that the incentive programs kind of depends on the token value. Basically, you assume token has values and use that as a kind of monetary incentive to kind of consumers, to people. And if your token value drops and lose the value and maybe go down to zero, as an incentive, it won't be effective as before. And if the incentive doesn't work, then the project usually will fail. But even the one of the things many people don't understand is that, unfortunately, some type of a project by nature, it's kind of very hard to make the token economics work. Just because I'm going to show you next chart is you just cannot create kind of enough token demand to keep the token value goes up, and that means when the tech value, and that's basically caused the token value to drop, and eventually this the program won't work. Here I've just give you some kind of two examples of two type of the project where the token supply is much bigger than the token demand, and the result of that is basically token price drop. And once token price drops, the incentive program will not going to work, and eventually the network won't jump started, and eventually it would fail. So one of the type of project is basically social network. I know people probably heard about a Kin token, which is started by Kik, which is another kind of similar like a Telegram's kind of social messaging platform. It's kind of very naturally because they want to incentivize user engagement as well as user acquisition. So they said, okay, every time you do something, we're going to pay you some tokens. This is easy to understand because the engagement is important metrics, or the user base is also important metrics for kind of a product like a social network. Because of you have to keep incentivize users engagement, and you have to keep minting a lot of tokens. However, if you look at this kind of a product, at least for me, it's very hard for me to figure out who would want this token inside the network. Basically, this is a type of network of product. It's very hard to design the native demand inside the kind of a system of the network. So eventually, with the Kin tokens, the value would keep going down, and sometimes even could drop to always way to zero. And that means the initial ideas to use token to incentivize user engagement or acquisition will stop working. So one of the things that kind of trying to point out is a lot of entrepreneurs or investors think, okay, maybe the best thing to do instead of building from scratch, we should convert existing business to tokenize existing business, especially business has a lot of users. Since you start not from zero, you start with kind of a user base. That intuitively is correct, but for many kind of type of projects, that actually may not work. Doesn't actually make sense because you cannot design kind of very good token economics to make the program work. The other type of project is basically data collection project. especially the AI project, because the AIs, you need a lot of user data to train your engines before you can actually make use of it. They always say, which is in the crypto space, which is idealistic argument that users should own their own data. It definitely correct in the sense that users should own their own data. However, in reality, it's very hard for you to start this business. The reason is that because for users to contribute to the data, you have to give them incentives. Just because the user should own their data, they will give you data. So the best way to do it is to give them incentives. And people say, oh yeah, it's easy. We just give them tokens, so they're going to contribute their own data. Yes, if the token was something, of course, users willing to say, oh, I'm earning some monies and I cannot make any use of my data, I just contribute. But the problem with this type of a project is that until the data reach critical mass, the data is kind of useless because nobody's really want to do something with the data. Nobody want to pay for the data. That means usually it takes a year to 2 years to accumulate enough data before you can get some kind of business to pay to make a model out of this data. That means in the first year or two, somehow you need to make sure the token price keep the value or appreciate over time. You can imagine where you get the money from. You keep mining the tokens, supply into network, but there's no native demand. What you end up is either you somehow have a lot of cash, or somehow you convince the secondary market to buy in the token to keep the token value. If you cannot achieve that, basically your token value goes down, and the thesis of use token to incentivize user to contribute to data will not going to work. That means you're never going to reach the critical mass of the data, and the project will fail eventually. The other most important things is network effect, because network effect is the holy grail to grow the network. For people who have run internet business, network business, they probably all kind of realize that how important to create a network effect. And as a new tool, token as a new tools, if you can design your tokening smells well, you can actually help to create a kind of a network effect. I'm going to use a Sesame Open since to give you to talk about kind of what a good network effect design is. The reading is that elegant design always requires a thorough understanding of the network and participants' individual incentives, and also the interrelationship among the participants. I have studied all the other projects, but I feel like since I know Sesame Open inside out, so I kind of designed this, I kind of understand the relationship of them. Probably I feel like this is probably the best example I can give you to help you understand how important network effect is and how to use token economic kind of to get the virtuous circle flying wheel to start it. In the kind of Sesame Open network, there are 3 types of kind of a participant. One, you have the consumers, which is the buying the product. The second is the vendors who are selling the product. The third, the participant, which is the venue, sort of act as agent to resell the products on behalf of the vendors. So if you look at the incentives is consumers is rational. They always whoever provide a low price, they will go to shop there. And from the vendor perspective, their incentive is the only thing I care is I want to sell as many products as possible. And whoever can provide me the channel that can sell the products, I'll just go with them. And from venue perspective, is basically they actually want to make extra money. So that's all they want. I already have the user base, and they belong to me. And right now, I don't have ways to make more money. If someone help me to make more money, I'm happy. So if you analyze this kind of relationship, is that if consumer make the purchase, that means vendors would come, because more consumer products will attract more vendors. More vendors and more products being sold, the vendors would pay the commission to the venues. That means, okay, you have more commissions, more money to make, more venues agent to kind of join this kind of network. Of course, you have a more venue to sell products, and you have a more product to be sold, and you're going to attract a lot more consumers, because more consumers feel like, okay, I can do a lot of things in different locations now. If you look at analyze all these things, you feel like, okay, consumers probably the kind of entry point to incentivize. And also consumers are easy to incentivize here because they react to tokens. So basically what we did is we invented what we call a proof of purchase mining. So basically every time consumers make a purchase through the network, we reward them with tokens. What is the effect is of a proof of purchase mining is we create a low price strategy that 25 years ago that Amazon used to attract customers from physical retail to centralized e-commerce. People always remind me that old days you go to like a physical bookstore like US, Barnes & Nobles, you find a book you like, but you did not purchase at the bookstore. You would rather wait 2 to 3 weeks to for the book to ship from Amazon to you home. But relatively, that's a bad shopping experience, because you already have the book, you already at a bookstore, but you just didn't want to buy immediately. And the reason is why? Because Amazon is cheaper. So today you cannot have a cheaper price at Amazon, but by giving them tokens, you effectively create kind of a low price strategy. So basically, once you incentivize consumers with tokens, the flying wheel the circle will start to rotating and eventually going up. Because more consumers making more product purchase, the vendors are happy. So instead of using other channels, for example, you cannot sell through Amazon, you can sell through here, more window would come. More window would come because more product being sold, they're happy to pay more commissions to the venues. The venues see the money, they say, oh, okay, maybe I should get more consumers to buy more product because I can make more money. Then the whole flying wheel started. The last thing which I want to talk about it is the local economy. This is kind of very hard to kind of explain. It's very kind of abstractive, but I just want to highlight a few things here that when you design kind of a tokens, you should keep that in mind. Basically, the token cannot exist without sort of economy. Just like US dollars, you always has economy associated with US dollar, which is US economy. And any kind of local product network you have, you also create a kind of local economy. Basically use token to govern the economy, eventually capture the value of the economy. So from an investor perspective, the reason why I look at the local economy is because the size of the local economy impact the long-term market cap of tokens. Some of the projects are interesting, but if you analyze the size of local economies, it's relatively small. That means the token cannot increase, in return because your total potential market cap is relatively small. However, even you have a local economy, but doesn't mean that tokens would capture all the values of the economy, and maybe only capture a portion of the economy. So it's still kind of very abstract to explain without some concrete examples, but the ideas behind it is basically you could design more functions with the token, trying to capture the more value, as much value as possible of a local economy. The third thing is also want to, from the evaluate token perspective, is that sometimes you could expand your local economy by expanding your token use cases. I think many people kind of intuitively, for example, just giving the kin token as well. Basically, the idea here, kin token design, at least claim in the white paper, is that kin token will not only be used inside KIC system. Eventually, they want kin token to be used by all kind of a social network, all kind of the applications that requires some kind of cryptocurrency. So but by expand the use case, technically you expand your size of local economy. Of course, whether the king's vision can be achieved or not, but at least they have thought about it, how to kind of increase the value of a token by kind of increasing the use cases and eventually increase the size of the local economy. And that's basically my presentations. I'm now going to take any questions. Let's do. So, I mean, let me start from where? From top of, Jake, should I start from the top or from the bottom? Let me see. Let me see the questions here. The first question is, I'll answer the J's questions. The question is giving transaction speed on chain, do we have to consider gas with tokens, and what would be the key considerations when designing a token? So personally, I won't consider gas cost as part of token design, because the gas cost is sort of outside the local economy, and it won't really affect much about the token appreciation, token supply and demand, and also the circulations. So the second part of the question is what the key consideration with designing a token. So as kind of discussed before, any token design started with incentive design, and incentive design is all about have clear goals of what do you want to achieve. And once you have the clear goal, what do you want to achieve, you can do analyze the kind of who are the people to incentivize, and they incentivize accordingly. So we mentioned about FCoin. So it looks like a failure. They got talked about to kind of one of the investors of FCoin, and he asked me the questions: if I redesign FCoin, what would it looks like? And my first question to him is, okay, before I design it, you need to tell me what the goal of the founders or the teams for the FCoin. And if their goal is short term instead of long term, the current design actually the perfect design. Since a lot of people say like exchange is the short term business, it's very hard to long term sustain it, and that's maybe they design that way. So it's hard to tell. So that's to answer the question. The key consideration, you definitely need to get the incentive, the goal right. Once you have that, everything is relatively easier. Another question is, Alex is like a comment about making incentive pay out dividends, the token become a security. I want to clarify here. I use the word security-like, asset-like token or currency-like token because I want to segment the token not from a legal perspective, but from a kind of a price appreciation perspective, economic perspective. So the reading is a different type of token. The price is driven by different rules. As kind of a comment out is if you pay dividends, very likely you make this as a security token. Okay, Liam's question sounds that. I think Indy made a comment that it was stock split rather than the dividend alone that was responsible for the decline. If you read my articles on FCoin, is actually more complicated than the stock split, because the dividends also pays to the founding team who also owns the token as well. So it's actually more like you acquired asset, but you inflate your token, but the asset is undervalued. That's actually caused the value really drops. Just Jade made a comment. Share dividend, cash dividend will not impact price negatively. This is not true. Anytime like you have paid dividends, it depends on how much you pay. The price should actually adjust accordingly. I mean the price will reflect the asset. Of course, sometimes the market price is a little bit, does not fully reflect the asset price. There's a kind of up and down, but long-termly, the price will reflect the underlying asset value. Benny asked the questions like me the tokenomic design process and methodologies, and also recommend a book or online classes that help to learn the design. I don't have that right now. I haven't see anything that I really think is the best in terms of teach you token design and the methodology. Since so far, I would say the market, not many people recognize the importance of token economics, and not many people, that's maybe the reason not many people put together some kind of class to kind of books to educate on this. And I think the most important thing is that different product requires different token design, and it's really hard for you to summarize a kind of a framework, a model that fit one size fit all. Jay asked the questions, what are some good use cases to look at other FCoin, the King token? I would encourage people to look at the Augur, ANGOE, the Augur's design, in token design. I think they have very good kind of token design from an economic perspective. Even though I would say Augur does not provide kind of incentive design to incentivize more people to use the system. So that's, I don't know whether that can be changed or not, because their assumption is that people want to use Augur are people who like to gamble, to make the bet on the prediction. That itself probably should drive people to using Augur. It's very hard for me to comment right now. But the reality is that Augur is not, at least from up to now, I think people are a little bit disappointed with the usage of Augur after its launch. Pat asked the questions about how much difference between using traditional coupon system and crypto tokens. We actually, Sesame Open, my co-founder Brandon actually wrote an article about the difference between loyalty point versus the crypto token. So traditional coupon system may be slightly different here. I would first comment on the loyalty point versus the crypto token, then answer this kind of traditional coupon system versus the crypto token. The loyalty point really works, even in US. Many people tried. The reading is the loyalty point has a lot of frictions, and they don't have a clear market value as a liquidity. But because of a crypto token, which is listed on exchange, has a clear value and also liquidity. So from a consumer perception perspectives, crypto tokens act as a cash rebate versus the loyalty points is more like, we don't know how much it's worth, and I can only use it for the future purchase. This traditional coupon system is basically the key difference between the traditional coupon system and crypto token is that the token incentive design is using kind of a concept of token inflation. If you design that well, the cost of, like, for example, in the Sesame Open case, the proof purchase mining token is actually system reserve token. That means sort of like vendors paying consumers using coupons, but no, provide the value of coupons, cash back, but vendors don't need to spend the money. Actually, it's the system token sort of pay for the coupons. But that you probably guess is like, so where the value come from. This is similar to the kind of Bitcoin minings. Every time you mine a block, there's an new token inflated into the system. However, the token holder should be happy about that activity, because without those miners, similarly in our Sesame Open case, without those consumers make the purchase, your token value will not appreciate over time. So that means they would also encourage this kind of token inflation to happen. So they're basically incentives are fully aligned. So I would say the key difference between traditional coupon system and crypto token is that who is paying for this kind of incentive. Tanja's question is there a possibility to calculate or estimate the future value of token? Theoretically, I would say potentially you can, just like stock, you can do a model to model what's the potential value of it. Without, of course, this model don't exist in the past, so you may have to develop yourself. I know some people, especially those kind of hedge fund, they develop some type of model. Whether they are correct or not is different questions, but theoretically you could model kind of the value of a token and how fast they would appreciate. Christopher asked the question, do you always need a token when creating a blockchain system? Why does it seem like the application blockchain is usually tied with the creation of token or coin? So there are called enterprise blockchain applications. In those enterprise blockchain applications, you don't need a token. The reason why you need a token is that if you want to really understand this, you have to understand what is these, how to make the application to work. So in a fully decentralized network, that means there's no single authority inside the network. That means without authority, the authorities and also the peoples, you cannot force people to join the network. So that's basically the fundamental reasons, because you cannot force people to join the network, and without the people to join network, the network won't work. So then you figured, okay, the only way to, get people to join network is to provide an incentive. Just like a Bitcoin case, if without the miners, the Bitcoin will never going to work. But because I cannot force people to join the network to be the miners, what can I do? Give them incentive. And the assumption here is that people are rational. They are only reactive to kind of a monetary incentive. And tokens, which is as a market value liquidities, is a perfect tool, act as a kind of monetary incentive. That's why you're going to see that applications of blockchain usually tie with the creation of a token or a coin. Such currency. How would the fundamental change? Glenn asked the question, how would the fundamental change if the token is linked to a physical asset? So this is basically what I call the asset-backed token, asset-based token. Asset-backed token is actually very straightforward. It pretty much no kind of token economics, because the token reflect the value of the physical asset. And if you have asset of $1 million, you want to issue 1 million tokens, and each token is worth $1. And if the asset appreciates, let's say within a year, 20% from 1 million to 1.2 million, and the token is only 1 million tokens, and because the token needs to reflect the asset, and the price would go up, probably from $1 to $1.20. But you can imagine the growth of the token price sort of directly tied to the kind of a growth of your physical asset in value. So personally, I don't really think those type of tokens are very exciting or interesting, because you ought to have that type of kind of security, whatever you want to call it, in the real world, either stock or some kind of others like a mutual fund or bond or REIT to reflect this type of physical asset. Soumya asked the question, does one need token for cross-border trade, or does Hyperledger without token manage a full industry solution? Does one need a token for cross-border trade? So I guess the question, I understand it, is that for cross-border means like I use different currencies, and how can I do a trade? You basically need a token for settlement. Some of the solutions that even you heard about Ripple, even Ripple is not really a blockchain company, but they use the Ripple coin or tokens as a settlement for cross-border. I heard for example, in especially in the kind of countries like Africa, where like a US company don't really trust the currencies in Africa, so they basically convert some currencies in African countries into Ripple, and they pay Ripple cross-border to US companies. The US company convert those Ripples into kind of US dollars, something like that. Yes, Hyperledger, as far as I know, is a kind of enterprise solutions, and I don't think they have a token in Hyperledger. Alex asked the questions, wouldn't you like to award dividend incentive to make sure it is a utility token that can be listed on exchange? Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I cannot give you kind of, this is a legal related questions. But I can answer in a way that if you pay dividends, very likely people treat this token as a kind of asset-like token or secure-like token that will be, the price will be driven by kind of the underlying value asset. Indy asked the questions, what are the main touch points you would advocate for the design process? I would argue is for very, very good design, you need to understand the product and the business. So once you fully understand that, then you can basically talk to people who have some design experience to design that. The people who know how to design token, but who don't understand the business, will definitely get it wrong. So the best way is probably in case there's no one person know both sides, basically for two people from each side to work together, to talk to each other, communicate each other, and design to have a good design. Liam asked questions. What do you think of the Steam systems using multiple token types? Can this approach be used to have a both investment and utility effect? So this is a very good question. This is basically talk about the multiple token design in a kind of a system. The question, basically answers here is yes, you definitely can design multiple tokens, but you have to be very clear about the usage of each token, how each token will be function and be used. Regarding whether the investment, then the key question to focus on here is which token capture the value of the network and eventually would appreciate over time. It's very hard for multiple tokens to appreciate over time inside one network, and usually only the one token capture the value. Once you know which token to capture values, you pretty much focus on investment in that particular token. And other tokens just being used sort of like as kind of utility. Mavish asked the question, how many different tokens that the world really need? That's very interesting questions. I would answer in a different way, in a sense that the tokenized product can be fundamentally different from non-tokenized product, and because of that, they have a kind of a shot to disrupt incumbent and reconstruct a new business domain. So if you succeeded, the token is actually effective. Eventually, will have values and will continue to exist. The second part, the second way of thinking about how many tokens to have is whether you believe a lot of like asset-backed, the physical assets which can be tokenized or not. I personally think a lot of physical assets can be really tokenized, and once they tokenize, there are probably going to be many, many tokens. So how many, I don't really know, but I think there will be a lot of tokens in the future. Of course, I also want to say that a lot of tokens, probably because of bad design, will go down in value, eventually die. But some other type of token will hold their value and appreciate. And sometimes some of the token can really appreciate much, much faster. Eugene asked the questions how to set the initial token price. That's very, very good question. I think most of the people who start with the token, the price is used for the token sales to raise capitals. So that's pretty much a market-driven thing initially. The other things, if it's a physical asset-backed tokens, you can quickly calculate the token price based on the physical asset value. Dylan asked the questions, do you believe the token economy will fragment according to industry? For example, each industry develop their own network token, or will they coexist on a common network but using different tokens? I don't know what you mean by different network. My definition of a network is really product driven. It's not the network like Ethereum network or not. So my personal view is that 5 years down the road, there may be only like 5 blockchain network exist. That's basically create a fundamental infrastructure layer. And on top of each public chain, like Ethereum, you have many different networks. And these networks are kind of governed by the different protocols in the network, and also different tokens inside each network as an incentive to kind of attract, basically to attract participants to join the network and scale the network. So hopefully that's answered Dylan's questions. Alexandra asked the questions, what the real value of utility token, how the business model in the background works. So the real, as I mentioned before, a utility token looks like a currency, which is supply demand. If the demand is higher than the supply, the utility, the token value would go up. Just basically supply the demand. So whether it's a real value or not, it's basically supply and the demand. I don't understand the questions of how the business model in the background works. Maybe just because I guess you mean that how you drive the value of utility token. Basically, as I answered, it's a supply demand. It doesn't reflect the real and the physical value. It's basically driven by the supply demand. Fatima asked the questions, what is the main point to begin the design process? As I kind of mentioned in the presentation, token design started with incentive design. Incentive design started with the thorough understanding of your product and your business. Pat asked the questions, how could we account for evolution of a serving market alongside the development of a network with the very initial design of a token incentive system? Seems not very flexible. I'm not quite fully understand the question, honestly. But I think you mean you already have an existing product, you're trying to tokenize the network, tokenize the product. Tokenizations requires totally different thinking than the centralized solutions. It's a very kind of a counterintuitive. Sometimes it's actually, I would say, disruptive. Disruptive means that you cannot be evolution of your existing product. You basically to design the whole thing from scratch again. Hope that answers your questions. Manju asked the questions, if your goal is to incentivize both for engagement and for a purchase product, how do we go about incentive design? This is good question because I have to understand your product to give you a very useful answer. I think the challenge here is that for product purchase, I mean, go back to, let's say, for example, the Sesame Open case, we decided not to incentivize for engagement. For example, people just look at the product listing but not making a purchase. Just because, like in this commerce, actually, we only want to reward people for making a purchase. And looking at the product is the step to leads to the purchase, and we don't want to incentivize that because that could easily create a token oversupply because people just game your system, just looking at it and earn tokens. And without a token purchase, you cannot create a token demand in our Sesame Open network. That means you're going to have a huge token oversupply. That's why we did not encourage, we did not incentivize engagement in our network. But technically, you could use the token to incentivize both engagement and product purchase, as long as your token design also consider the fact that there are a lot of supply of token. You somehow need to create a token demand that bigger enough than the kind of token supply, eventually hold the token price and value, and to make the system work. Naeem asked the question, if you build your own blockchain or fork, for example, how many nodes you need to make it secure enough? Honestly, I don't think there's a consensus in the industry about how many nodes is more decentralized. People argue that EOS, which has 21 supernode, is not a decentralized. But nobody can give a more accurate, is 42 more decentralized, or maybe you requires 100 to be decentralized. But it seems like people agree that 21 is not big enough to be secure enough. I wish I asked a question how to how to create security SEC proof token. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, so I cannot answer that questions. Manju asked the question is if you use a stable USD coin, stable coin to incentivize both engagement and purchase the product or the network, how do we go about incentive design? You basically now you just give a cashback to reward engagement and purchase. In this type of stablecoin design is that basically where the value comes from. How do you generate the stablecoin from your system? Most likely you don't. That means most likely you're going to get the cash to buy tokens and pay for that. And that basically goes back to the kind of traditional user acquisition, use capital to incentivize the users to do that. In the token case and token crypto case, technically, you could use the token inflations, which I sort of described that. Basically, you have a system reserve tokens that you could mint it and kind of reward a consumer to achieve your goal. Gabriel asked me to ask the questions. Do you know of any project that are using blockchain to promote a social and environmental impact? I definitely saw many projects trying to promote social and environmental impact. Definitely, they are very good, like a noble cause to do that. Personally, I have not seen anything that excite me. That I understand you can use blockchain to solve those social and environmental problems and have a kind of social and environmental impact. However, if the project, the tokenomic design doesn't work, you won't achieve your goal either. I think in those type of project, it's kind of really hard because it's very hard to use a token to make the tokenomics work because who is going to pay to buy the token, to use the token. I mean, you can use tokens to incentivize consumers to do some things, to contribute the data. But if the token doesn't hold the values, eventually I doubt it will continue to work to incentivize consumers to contribute data, for example. Liam asked a good question: is can a token system be designed evolve, starting with the design, add features later? Technically, I think you can. The challenge with any kind of public project is that you publish your white paper and you're pretty much telling your community this exactly rule we want to do. And later on decide, oh, by the way, we made a mistake, or we want to improve, we want to change the rule. I personally don't know how the community would react. That's probably you can do it, but you probably need to, especially if the project is launched, you need to convince the community to kind of agree with you to kind of upgrade your system. This is similar to like Bitcoin or the Ethereum have a few upgrade. So is that the easiest thing to do? I think it's not, but technically it can be done. Those things, if community agree this improvement, usually you can get a community to support it. If it's a totally redesign it, it's probably going to be very hard for you to get a community to rally or behind you. And if you really want to force through the changes, and you may lose your community, eventually your network would collapse. Jessica asked the questions is why some projects have limited Genesis token, some have unlimited number of tokens. This is basically a token design issues. For example, Bitcoin has limited tokens, which is only 21 million, and Ethereum somehow choose to have a schedule to kind of issues new tokens forever. This is all comes back to kind of token monetary policy in terms of supply and demand, and people may argue the recent market down, the Ethereum drop more than the Bitcoin just because they think because Ethereum has unlimited token in the future, supply in the future, where the Bitcoin has a limited supply. The question is all about the design, what you want to achieve and how much you want your token to appreciate, and what's the best way to do that. There's no right or wrong for. It's really kind of a project base, depends. Emma asked questions. Surely, if the token system can't adapt to the environment to provide incentive, they will fail in the long term. Doesn't an incentive program have to be agile by nature, like a human adapt to the change? So to answer this is actually a very interesting question. So the incentive definitely would change over time, I would argue. But when you start doing something, you probably have some kind of assumptions in mind that what kind of incentive will work. So that's why you design it accordingly. So for example, actually in the Sesame Open design, we actually made assumption that the price as kind of low price strategy probably only works for about 10 years. That's why our tokens reserved only minted over 10 years. If you look at the history, initially Amazon has a competitive advantage over physical retail on pricing, but the pricing advantage goes away, I think, about after 10 years. Right now, the competitive advantage is not about the pricing anymore. It's all about other type of kind of a benefit. So I would agree with Emma that the incentive would change, but when you design it, you had to make assumption what the incentive would work today or for the near future to work. Alex asked questions. What the difference between Sesame Open and affiliate network like Ref Token? Alex, I probably would answer that questions offline since it's more kind of specific to kind of Sesame Open, not the tokenomics in general. Hope that is okay. You can feel free to reach me. Liam asked interesting questions. How about a smart contract that achieve a massive global environmental project that will only trigger if it's get enough money, otherwise time out and pay everyone back? That's actually a good idea, I think. Basically, what you're trying to do is if I don't raise enough money, that I won't start a project, and I just return the money to everybody else. This is very, I would say it's not really token economics. It's more like a funding kind of strategy. I'm not sure if Ethereum is doing that, but good luck with it. Naim asked the question, can we make profit from issuing tokens that will be used for charity project? for example, for use by charities, but part of the money will go to the developers. I think you can. Of course, you can make money off any project. It's just basically how you're going to design how to make money. I'm not sure this kind of token economics related. Maybe related in the sense that developer is a part of the ecosystem, part of the network. Maybe the way is you can hold some tokens as part of the project, and the token has values and has market value, liquidity, and you could liquidate your tokens to get paid as developers. I do think developers should get paid even for the charity type of project, because you need to leave to do good. I guess that's all the questions I have so far.